Hello, welcome back to CMIS422 Information Security, the wrap-up for Chapter 3 material, since we kind of ran out of time on Thursday night. So here's a video just to cover a little more material. We started to get into the section on professional ethics, which is it's a deep topic, although not that deep, because I've got a library full of philosophy books on ethics, and this is not that. This is just professional ethics in the workplace. At the same time, it is so much more important for cybersecurity professionals because the bar is so much higher. Does that mean we expect our security people to live 100% virtuous lives and be good 24/7? That's nobody, right? But that's still what we aspire to, is to be trustworthy. So we'll talk more about the ethical issues involved in security. Now remember, we said privacy is the #1 ethical issue of our time with regard to information security in general. But why are people so uptight about privacy? What makes this an ethical issue? Well, I found a video that gets into some of the kind of deeply personal aspects of privacy, just to get you thinking about why this is so important. So let's take a look at this, and hopefully this will work to show a video within a video. If for some reason this does not work, you can go to this website here and watch it on your own, and then skip ahead six minutes. Okay, here we go.
Personal data is personal. It's about the human being, and it is deeply connected with privacy.
Open data is data that can be anonymized and useful as an aggregate of many people's data in order to ascertain things about the way we live.
Open data for me is the start of great conversation and discussions about what are the best ideas for mankind pushing forwards.
Personal data is phenomenal because it really does offer insight into people's desires. You look at something like a search engine, and the search engine is a classic intention machine. What is it that somebody wants to get?
Any hardware that I buy, I always switch off location services.
My big fear is location data being accessed by the wrong people.
Information that changes my status within a system, I'm uncomfortable with. That changes, for example, the stuff that's advertised at me.
I've made a very strong decision, for example, that to release as little data as possible about my children in order to give them the choice when they grow up about how much of their personal lives they want to make open and available to everybody else. I don't want to have made that decision for them.
You implicate other people in activities, behaviors, assumptions when you put relational data online.
We are at such an early stage in the evolution of what the internet will become that businesses are like infants. Their manners are horrible.
There was a case in which a father phoned up Target and said, "What are you doing? Are you you keep sending all these coupons to my daughter, with diapers and with baby food and with baby jumpers and baby grows and all this kind of stuff. What are you doing? She's 16 years old." And Target's saying, well, maybe you need to have a conversation with your daughter because our big database has managed to pull lots of information together.
It can go very quickly from being personal and nice and useful to extremely creepy.
It would never occur to anybody in a mature industry like retailing to trail somebody out of a store and plant a tracking beacon on them and say, don't worry, this isn't personal, we're only trying to follow you around and see what you're doing so we can give you a better advertising experience. It's a ludicrous notion on its face.
If you wanted more privacy for your email, you could go and get email by paying for it, and paying a relatively small amount of money, and then not having your email analyzed. Most people would rather not pay money for their email, so they make the trade-off for the advertising.
There are really legitimate uses for big data. If you're a pharmaceutical company, if you're in medicine, you want to know as much as possible about the human genome, about the conditions of disease. If you're a power company, you want to know about power use and consumption and distribution as many variables as you can get into that. And that, to me, those are extremely legitimate uses for big data.
It allows them to hopefully cater to their audience in a more informed manner.
But where the big money is being spent, where investment within organizations is moving from manufacturing, operations, IT, all sorts of other places, moving to marketing. And it's moving to marketing because there's this assumption that, oh, geez, people are coughing up data all the time, whether they know it or not.
There's an example of a prominent social network that's released an application that basically listens to what's going on in the room to try and work out what TV shows are going on in the background and stuff. In actual fact, that's an LG's privacy agreement as well. If you use the sound command features of the televisions, it wasn't left to doubt. It actually said that private speech that occurs in the same room will be captured. So they're essentially, I mean, lots of things can be private apart from speech. I mean, you know, essentially, yeah. I mean, that it's a hot mic.
We always make mistakes, and we always want to forget them. And the problem with the internet is that we can't forget them.
I think the average person who's going about their daily business, doing whatever, they don't care, don't have a clue, and probably shouldn't really. As long as if something comes up and there's a problem that emerges, they have access to tools.
If I was ever to have children, I'd be very nervous about them having their smartphones giving away their location data to certain applications, because there's many applications that come across as genuine but are actually, you know, they have ulterior motives that are tracking data in the background.
You create your identity by showing different aspects of your personality to the world. If you're different to different people, if you have no privacy, you can't do that.
The economies of scale will favour the people who essentially hand over their data, and the rest of us will be faced with a difficult or impossible choice if we want to actually opt out of that, because, you know, life will just become quite inconvenient.
Fight for those spaces where what you do now isn't going to come bite you in the butt in the future, because that is part of our human, personal, psychological, and social evolution.
The ideal solution is to get to the situation where the end user doesn't have to care.
Okay, pretty good video and a lot of important points that are brought up. Notice the use of the term aggregate data as a danger to privacy. This is very different from using aggregated data, which is not a threat to privacy, but aggregating data together, cobbling together information about a person is a threat to privacy. Certainly GPS tracking and location services was brought up several times, as was the role of children and location data services. Certainly the creepy factor is very high for that one. This is something my wife and I wrestled with. At what age is it appropriate to give our daughter a smartphone where she can, you know, install any number of apps for free, and who knows what gets turned on or who's tracking her. You know, this is not a legal decision, right? There's no there's no legislation that says children can't use smartphones or what age it's that they're allowed to. This is an ethical decision that parents have to make, and it's a tricky one. The example of Target sending diaper coupons to a teenage girl whose parents did not know she was pregnant, just because they were able to correlate all of the data, all of the aggregated data about this person together, and make a prediction that this girl is probably pregnant. Super creepy. Not illegal, highly unethical. You see the difference here? So that there's a fundamental trade-off between convenience and privacy, for one thing. The free tools we use, we're giving up part of our privacy in order for them to be free, such as Gmail, Facebook, any number of online examples. I'm intrigued with this idea of we have different roles that we play, and one of the threats to privacy is kind of knocking down the walls between You know, the me that I am at work versus the me that I am with family versus the me that I am with friends is actually very different. It probably is very different with you. Is it right to knock down those walls and have one unified online presence for all three of those spheres, or the many, many spheres that you, the many different roles that you play in society? Which leads us to the big question, which is, what is the ethical use of data? And the answer is, we don't know. We don't know. We're still figuring this out. If you're looking to me for answers, sorry. This is something your generation is going to have to figure out, to my way of thinking. This is the problem you're inheriting, the ethical problem you're inheriting, and the ethical problem that you have to solve. You will have to solve this in the workplace to figure out what the right thing to do is. And my hope for you is you'll always choose to do the right thing, the ethical thing at work, certainly, and especially if you're in cybersecurity. We also mentioned in class, I believe, how cybersecurity professionals don't have a binding code of ethics. That is to say, there's no professional licensing like there is for doctors, lawyers, very mature professions. You are not going to lose your license to practice if you violate a cybersecurity code of ethics. That said, that doesn't mean it's not important. That just means that we're in a very immature industry, which tells me if I have to look in my crystal ball in the future, it's coming, right? I can easily envision a future where in order to work in security, you have to be not just certified, but licensed, and that license could be revoked. We're not there yet, but I see it coming. Hey, I'm back. I think my video was off screen there. Sorry about that. But this slide is probably one of the most important ideas out of the entire CMIS422 class, and I need to make sure that you're crystal clear on this point. And that is, black hat hackers are criminals that do not have authorization to access systems. So accessing a system without authorization is hacking and is illegal. White hat hacking is what you guys are going to be hopefully in the future, if not already. A white hat hacker is fully authorized by the company, by an organization that's hiring them to conduct penetration tests within the scope, within the parameters of the test. They're asked to do this testing. They write up a report and share that information based on kind of a contractual agreement ahead of time. Gray hat hacking is supposed to be somewhere in the middle, where you're testing for vulnerabilities, you find vulnerabilities, maybe you exploit them, maybe you don't, but you write up a nice report and send it to the organization after the fact, saying, here you go, expecting the organization to say, thank you so much for sharing this information with us. Here's a reward. You'll be shocked to find the organization is not happy with you at all, because in fact you were accessing a system without authorization and hence hacking. So really, for a School of Business perspective, there is no gray hat hacking. None. Get that out of your head. This is a black and white issue. You're either authorized or you're not. If you're not authorized, don't do it. Now that said, that this is very black and white, ethics is obviously not black and white at all, or tends not to be. For most people, ethics is a very gray area. And it gets even more murky when you look at international standards of behavior. So something that's unethical in the U.S. might be completely ethical in another country's culture. So, for example, software piracy is unethical and illegal in the U.S. It's illegal in a lot of Asian countries, but it's not considered unethical because they're more of most Asian cultures are collectivist, so collectivist versus individualist, and this is a concept popularized by Geert Hofstede, who's a very, very big name in culture studies, if you haven't run across him before. This division between collectivist cultures and individualist cultures is going to skew what's ethical and what's not. His other areas of power distance, which involves respect for authority, and he's got several dimensions. A cultural dimension that is of particular interest to IT people is the dimension of uncertainty avoidance. Some cultures are much more risk averse than others. So a very simple example, some cultures that have a low tolerance for uncertainty are probably going to do a better job at disaster recovery planning than cultures that are very tolerant of uncertainty and ambiguity and risk, such as the U.S. That's just one, for instance, and there are other dimensions, but this is not a anthropology or sociology class, so we don't need to do a deep dive. But if you're into these culture studies, I would certainly start with Hofstede. That's what turned me on to this area, and you might find it interesting too, because you can go to this site and look up different cultures and compare them. Might make for a good paper in one of your other classes. So if we have a large multinational organization with employees in a lot of different countries, with a lot of different cultures, how are all those employees to know what's ethical, what's the code of conduct for the company? Well, obviously that needs to be documented, but not just documented. Employees have to be trained across the board on what's expected of them in terms of the values of the organization, which may not necessarily be the values of that national culture, or even something that they're used to from different organizations. So really getting dialed into a company's mission statement and their values and their vision is key, and that requires, I would almost call it indoctrination, but training and education for new employees and what's expected of them is not something that should be skipped at all. The reality, though, is we frequently skip it, or at least snooze our way through it. A lot of times, ethical training, new employee training, is just something that's done online or via some webinar or a video that somebody can keep on in the background, like you're doing right now. While you're doing something else, you're not really paying attention. If we were in the classroom environment, I would ask you for some ideas on what works best for you in terms of training. Some students say, oh, it's the direct interaction with an instructor that helps to make the material relatable. That is the most expensive form of training and education, so I'm curious what creative ideas you have for how to do a better job with ethical training, cybersecurity training, privacy training in a corporate environment going forward. I'm not sure, but I think gamification is going to be a big part of it. All right, getting specific now into what drives unethical and possibly illegal behavior with employees. There are three main areas: ignorance, accident, and intent. Very test-worthy categories, right? Anytime you see a list of things, that's a good test question right there. Either somebody didn't know that it was wrong, or they knew it was wrong, but they did it by accident. They didn't mean to click it. Or three, they deliberately did it, and quite frankly, they need to be fired. Technology controls are not the best way. They're a way to control employees, but they're not the best way. You really need all three for comprehensive security. So, yeah, I would line this up to the three areas of any information system: people, process, technology. Ignorance means you've got a training issue. An accident means you've got a bad process. Intent, maybe you've got some technology controls in place, firewalls that are blocking things, intrusion detection systems that are going to detect malfeasance. Maybe they work, maybe they don't. Whether your technology controls work or they don't, there has to be a certain level of fear on the part of employees. Laws and policies, and this is something that laws and policies have in common. Remember, they're not the same thing, but they have this in common: that they can only deter bad behavior if three conditions are present: fear of a penalty, some sort of retaliation on the part of the organization, shouldn't say retaliation, consequences from the organization, and then the likelihood that they're going to be caught, and then the likelihood that the consequences are going to be fairly dealt out to them. Now, hopefully that's the case, but that is not always the case. If you feel like you're the favorite and you're not going to get in trouble even if you get caught, that's a bad situation. Fear can be generated. Fear's a funny thing. When I was on the help desk at Corning many years ago, we didn't have a web content filtering system in place yet. It just wasn't in the budget. However, I might have sent an email out to the entire corporate office saying that web traffic could be monitored per our code of conduct. I didn't say it was, but I said that we had the legal right to monitor all web traffic, which instilled a culture of people assumed that we were monitoring it, and people would self-report. They'd call up the help desk and say, "Oh, I just wanted to let you know I accidentally went to this website. I didn't mean to, but I don't want to get reported to HR or anything." And it's like, "Oh, thank you for letting me know. I'll take care of it this time, but don't let it happen again." "Oh, thank you so much, Tim." Okay. There are a lot of ways to deter people, and some of them have nothing to do with technology whatsoever, and more to do with psychology. I think the best deterrence is you've got to set an example, and somebody's got to get fired for violating a cybersecurity policy. Pretty soon, clicking on a phishing link is not going to be excusable and go, "Oh well, they don't know better." Pretty soon, I think that's going to be a firing offense. Now, a code of conduct or an ethical code of conduct for an organization is going to change from org to org as you move through your career. So make sure you understand what's considered ethical behavior, especially around data management and data governance and privacy for your organization specifically. But just know that there are some standard rules and best practices that cut across all organizations. So, for example, if you're a member of ACM or SIM or AITP or IEEE or any number of professional organizations, they have a code of ethics. They're all very, very similar. Let me see if I can pull up an example for you. Okay, that AITP link is dead because with CompTIA and AITP merging, I don't know if you've heard this news or not, but CompTIA bought AITP. To create a new IT professionals organization. This is cool for you. It means AITP members will get a half-price discount on CompTIA stuff. You'll get lots of discounts out of this deal. But go to an AITP meeting to get more info on that. But ISSA is a huge security organization. Note their code of ethics here. It's kind of short and sweet. Their overview in terms of performing your duties according to the highest ethical principles, maintain appropriate confidentiality in the course of professional activities, diligence, honesty. That one's pretty. The PDF gets into a little more detail. Let me show you another. The GIAC Code of Ethics with the SANS organization. This is another very popular training organization for security professionals. Kind of note the principles here: respect for the public, respect for the certification, respect for your employer. I'll protect confidential and proprietary information with which I come into contact. I'll minimize risks to the confidentiality, integrity, and availability, CIA, right? We know this acronym, of any IT solution consistent with risk management practice. I'll avoid conflicts of interest. I will not misuse any information or privilege I'm afforded as part of my responsibilities. Don't lie, cheat, steal, so far. One more example. ACM is probably the oldest professional organization for IT people, and I like theirs. General ethical principles, contribute to society and to human well-being, acknowledging that all people are stakeholders in computing. I love that. Really, that's good. Avoid harm, always a good principle. Be honest and trustworthy, simple stuff. Be fair and take action not to discriminate. Good. 1.6, respect privacy. Here we go. The responsibility of respecting privacy applies to computing professionals in a particularly profound way. And it gets into all the issues that we've been talking about so far. Then honor confidentiality. I would say the difference between privacy and confidentiality. Privacy has to do with personal information. Confidentiality tends to deal with proprietary information by the that's owned by the company, such as trade secrets, proprietary information. That's not a privacy issue, that's a confidentiality issue. But these are subtle shades of meaning at this point. But you'll see common denominators between all these codes of ethics in every organization. The textbook has a couple of nice tables with more info on the different kind of focuses of these professional organizations. Like I said, ACM is probably the oldest. ISACA is huge. We get into this a lot in the IT audit and control class, but it's also relevant for cybersecurity. ISA is huge, so the CISSP certification is more of a management certification for security people, but it's a lot of people do that after a Security Plus, after a couple of years in the workplace. ISC2, sorry, I misspoke. CISSP is part of ISC2, and GIAC and the SANS organization is huge. I would add to this list AITP. I would also add InfraGard to this list as a very good organization to join. Certainly as a student, you should go ahead and join up with InfraGard to get access to FBI bulletins on cybercrime issues on a weekly basis. Also, with all these organizations, remember they have LinkedIn groups that you should join, and if you can join a cybersecurity group on LinkedIn for free, even without kind of paying to join the professional organization, isn't that a great way to telegraph to employers that you're serious about cyber? So join some groups on cybersecurity on LinkedIn. Yeah, so InfraGard is huge. My last comment on professional organizations is this is a great way to stay up to date on threat intelligence, so kind of what you're doing with your RSS feeds on a weekly basis. But professional organizations, such as InfraGard, might give you access to more than you would normally be able to see. It also gives you access to jobs, man. You show up to a AITP conference in St. Louis. That's a great way to, network and pass your resume around, or at least, make connections, connect with the right people on LinkedIn, people that are in cybersecurity that can help you get a job. So I would say if you've got, any questions between now and the exam, things that you're unclear about, please email me, call me, text me, get in touch with me, stop by my office. I'm here to help. I want to help you. I'm not going to try and trick you with the exam. It's just going to be on the big issues that we've covered so far on chapters 1 through 3. So with that, I'll wrap up this video, and I'll see you in class on Thursday. Thanks.